All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the Million Dollar Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Scott Danner. Scott, welcome. So awesome to have you, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, what's so cool, I was sharing with you before we hit the record button how, it's been my belief for years that relationships as entrepreneurs are the most valuable asset we have. And here you and I are connecting, having a conversation for the first time ever. Prior to like about, I don't know, 7 minutes ago, you and I had never even spoke before. But
right,
because we have this mutual friend, and I'm going to give Brandon Fong a little bit of kudos here. Brandon is the one that connected us and said, Kev, you got to interview Scott for your podcast. And so here we are, and you and I got to connect a little bit before we hit the record button, and we both found out how much appreciation and love we both have for Brandon. So I want to acknowledge Brandon for the role that he played in this, and I also just kind of want to point out that, like, you know what, because of this mutual friend that you and I have, that trust, if you will, that relationship, that appreciation that we both have for Brandon, it just automatically carries over to both of us. And you and I can connect for the first time and almost feel like we've been friends for years because of Brandon,
Yeah,
And so
100%.
Power of relationships. So what I'd
Huge.
like to do is just start off by turning it over to you, Scott, so that you can set some context for the listeners and kind of let everybody know, who is Scott Danner, what's Scott Danner all about, and share a little bit about your background, what you do, who you serve, what inspires you to do what you do. We'll just kind of start there.
Sure. Well, I think anytime I start with who I am, I should start with what's most important to me. And I'm a father of two boys, 16 and 13. I've been married almost 20 years to my wife. We kind of started together very young and got married in our early 20s and really built the family and the life that we have today. And throughout those years, I've always been a visionary. I've always been an entrepreneur. And I think past where most people are thinking, even in and around us, and when you get around a bunch of entrepreneurs, you realize that there's a lot of us that do that. But, just in general, I was able to find the right paths. And so went to college, came out, worked for the Attorney General's office out of in the state of Virginia. I was in a position as Assistant Director of Crime Prevention. Thought I wanted to go into law, thought I wanted to go into all these paths in politics. Figured out pretty quick it wasn't for me. And I'll kind of tell a side story, and it will also be one of the people that we'll highlight today, because we're going to highlight relationships. I know we talked about that, but I'll kind of backtrack on this, but I ended up in the financial services industry as a financial advisor. And I did so and ran a lifestyle practice for 15 years before going out and starting Freedom Street Partners, which is my company today. And Freedom Street Partners is now in 7 states. We have just under 50 advisors. We manage just under $3 billion in assets. And I serve as a CEO. And, I'm surrounded by a great team. I've built phenomenal relationships. We're building a great culture. And most of all, when you ask me what I'm passionate about, I have spent my entire career building relationships. See, if you started in the financial services industry and you are in your 40s like me, there are actually more 80-year-olds in the industry than there are 30-year-olds today, because most people are transaction driven. And that worked for a number of years. In fact, it worked so well that most people that did it for so long are still able to do that to this day and practice the old way. But in the new world, and my world that I've always lived in, building a relationship and trusting each other, much like you said earlier, is the way to develop something. And so, we've really built something that is special. And when you talk about passion, I'm very passionate about the high performance life. And I use the high performance life as my way of staying perfectly imbalanced. And what I mean by that is entrepreneurs are always imbalanced in our relationships and in our work and everything. But it's the self-awareness to kind of pull ourselves up from an area of hyper focus. Maybe we're driven in one direction or another. And I break that up into love, impact, faith, and energy. Love are your who's, impact is your what, it's what you do. Your why is your faith, something bigger than yourself, whatever that is to you. And last is your energy. How are you showing up to the world every day? And so what I'm most passionate about today is not only helping people with their finances, not only helping people, change their trajectory of their life, but building relationships that go much deeper, balancing out the imbalances, helping people in a way that goes well beyond. And that's why I love talking to people like you about relationships, because it's perfect.
Yeah. Wow. That is, and I will tell you, in my opinion, especially with everything that's happened over the last 2.5 years, relationships are more important now than ever. And you're right, the transactional approach, it doesn't work like it used to work. It does not work. And it is about relationships. It's about who we can trust. And sometimes it takes years to build up trust,
Right.
and so, but when we have that trust, of others, and we're just kind of like, we hold that space in their lives for them, man, that's a valuable, we are a valuable person for them in that.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, you got to be a giver. I mean, ultimately, you got to be a giver. And if you're giving of yourself to other people, you're putting out into the world the kind of energy that's going to come back tenfold. We talked about Brandon. The reason we both love somebody who's an amazing person, someone that we have been attracted to their energy, is because they put out great energy into the world. They're young, they're interesting, they're interested, they're going places, they're already places. And that kind of energy is the kind of energy that attracts us to build a deeper relationship. And it's only going to get stronger over the years. And I love that you referenced that and discussed that right as we started. So thanks for that.
Absolutely. Well, now that we've got a little bit of context set, I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners here. So, have you ever met or been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Scott, I am just really excited to hear your story, your experience around this, because I know it is going to inspire other entrepreneurs who are listening to this.
Yeah, first of all, I think that I mentioned this earlier, just as we briefly broke bread prior to the start, and that is that I believe you have to have the frequency open and aware to receive other people, other information, other mentorship opportunities, sometimes moments of mentorship, something I talk about a lot. And I'm going to go back to, there's a couple people that I want to mention, a couple of things and a couple of points that were turning points. But the number one is I started in a place I don't normally start. I've been the CEO of our company for over 6 years. I've been in financial services for over 20. I started before, when I was in politics, working for the Attorney General's office out of school for a reason, because I have a really big family. My mom has, there are 6 girls and 1 boy in the family, and I was the firstborn grandson. All of my aunts and uncle are some of the most important people in my life. And one of my aunts I happened to be talking to when I found out that I wasn't going to get the job I currently held in the administration. There was a new governor that came in, a new attorney general, and I spent 3 hours interviewing for a position. And about an hour into it, I said, I'm not interviewing for this position. I'm giving you the job description, aren't I? And they said, well, no. And I said, well, it's okay. I'll stay here as long as I need to make sure that this is going to continue and you guys are going to thrive. And I'm looking forward to seeing it continue in the future, whether I'm here or not. And I went home and I called my aunt and I complained, and I was negative and I was down and I was, unsure of where I wanted to be in my future. I had decided that I didn't want to go to law school because I was only going to law school because it was a path forward, not because I wanted to be a lawyer. And I genuinely just wanted more in my life. And my Aunt Paulette said to me on the phone, she said, Scott, I feel like you would be a perfect financial advisor. all these guys that I see, she was working in an office in Arkansas where her husband and her had transferred for his business in a place that we had no roots, and she was alone and I was alone. And she said, I just feel like you have the energy that would help people through some of the biggest things in their life. Like you could do this. And I said, oh, I don't want to, I don't know money. We don't have any money. Like, what do I know about money? And she said, no, you know a lot. You've learned a lot. You're growing. You're someone who could do this. And so I applied for a job of which I had no concept of what it would include. And she gave me the confidence to do that. 20 plus years later, I've had the pleasure of being, ranked best in state by Forbes and building a multi-billion-dollar assets under management company. And it's only one chapter or one part of my life. But without that, the financial success of our family, what I've provided for my children, and the confidence that my aunts and uncle provided for me when I was growing up, is she was a perfect person in that moment that pushed me through a moment of weakness for me, something I wasn't really good at. I wasn't really a complainer. I wasn't really negative. I was pretty much a positive visionary from the get-go, but that right there, she pulled me up. She said, get up. You're going to be great at this. And I did it because she believed in me. And I cannot tell you how much that meant. And I'll pause in case you have a question, and then I'll tell you the second part to that.
Yeah. Well, as you're telling that story, I'm thinking of a specific person in my own life that did the same exact thing for me and reminded me of my value to him personally. And he's like, Kevin, you have got to continue stepping into this and growing into this person that can achieve what you want to do. He's like, because people like me, we need you. He's like, and it was that like, where and that was at a down moment where I was at right at that point in time too, and he just, because he shared that, it made all the difference in the world. And I'm like, man, if this guy believes in me and he wants me to keep going in this direction, then I need to keep going in this direction. I am on
Right.
the path. And man, that just totally hits home, Scott. So thank you for that. And I imagine that probably hits home with a lot of people. And so, well, go ahead. So continue on, and because I told you before we started that I want you to share whatever feels right for you in this moment, because we can do no wrong as long as we do that. So,
I think that when you look back, there's foundational things like my parents, and I can go through all the things that they did. The fact they provided me with the external community of my mom's sisters and her brother and my dad and his brother and the people that helped build us up. I mean, negating any of them, I would be remiss to not celebrate all of them, because I felt like when you come out the firstborn grandson in an Italian Catholic family, you are like Simba. I mean, I had more confidence than I even understood from the day that I was born. And I'm very grateful, because that confidence helps other people find theirs.
mm-hmm.
And so I mentioned to you before, though, that life is full of chapters. And that was a chapter where I was lucky enough to be listening to the people that meant a lot in my life and were in my family. And so often we shut down to the people in our own family because we know them, because we love them, because we think we've heard their message before. And because I was open and that frequency was open, I was also open when I went into new rooms. I was also open as I went into new chapters of my career. And I think there's two things that I want to mention that are very valuable, and I'll quickly summarize. Okay. Number one is the circle that you surround yourself with. We both met Brandon at Genius Network. Joe Polish has done an amazing job of pulling together entrepreneurs. And when I walked in that room in 2018, my business was thriving. A lot of things were happening that were good. But since that point, I have sent my COO to COO Alliance with Cameron Harold, and she's 10 times better. And the level of execution she's delivered upon has been amazing. I've written a book and launched that as a whole new item. I've met and collaborated on joint ventures. Like, there's so many different things that have happened because I was in a good room surrounded by great people with phenomenal energy. And I think that's one of the things that's really important. The second thing, and the reason I bring it up, is the execution point. A visionary and an idea person, if you were in a room where all your ideas go into smoke and nobody around you can help you execute, that CEO to COO mentality is so valuable.
Yeah.
It's so valuable. And today, my COO, Valerie Rivera, is one of the most important friends, important people, and I watch her thrive and grow in our business. And each year, I watch this level of growth between not only her existence and results, but the ability to pull stuff out of me that might just go up into smoke in other places.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that, you know, you could probably define one, but in a short amount of time to go over a couple of different avenues gives the listeners something to think about in a couple different directions.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So in regard to your COO, so, and what's her name, by the way, again?
Valerie
Valerie.
Rivera.
I wanted, okay. And what is like one or two things that has transpired between you and Valerie that because of the relationship the two of you have together, that hands down you would have never made that kind of impact without Valerie in your life?
Yeah. So, you come across people, and when you are a visionary, there's lots of people that like your ideas, but it's hard to find people in the world that are analytical and execution points, like true doers that see the vision in the way that you also see it. Like, it's not always like, sometimes if you deliver it into a room and you say, here's what the big picture is, the people that are not big picture are saying, how can we build this from the ground up? And all the people at the top are saying, no, look at the top and work down. What I've found success in together is really developing both strategies, focusing on the top down, which is the way I think, and the bottom up execution. And so I'll give you one great example.
Okay.
When anyone on our team that are directors or managers in our organization deliver a message to me, she makes sure that by the time it comes to me, that it is delivered top first. What's your big idea? What are you trying to accomplish? What is the objective from a big picture standpoint? And then we get into the weeds. Because if someone comes into me with the weeds first, all I hear and see are problems that I have to change or fix. So when she comes in with the big picture, I'm able to really execute my time in a very special way. And so that's one really, really important thing. And the second thing I would say is, when someone believes in your message so much, and we're also great friends. I'm the godfather to her children, with her husband and I playing soccer together for the last 20 years.
Wow.
My wife and her are great friends. Her daughter just spent the weekend with our family this weekend. I took her driving all weekend. When you started this conversation with relationships, when you have love for the people around you and impact, and all that can flow into the very people that you invest in every single day, you can't help but to be successful.
That's right. Yeah. Wow. Scott, I want to just thank you for taking the time to have this conversation today and just share from your heart and honor some of the people that have had such a profound, because none of us is doing this on our own. There might be people who think that, but not true. We are, we have so many people that have helped us along the way. And I just, for anybody listening to this that is just like, man, Kev, I just love Scott. I love his energy. I love the way he shows up. How can they find out more information about what you guys are doing and all that?
Yeah. So you can always check our company out at freedomstreetpartners.com.
Okay.
You can go to scottdanner.com, which is the easiest way to find me. It's my name, So scottdanner.com, and that kind of can lead you to lots of different things. I really encourage people to listen to our YouTube channel. We're launching it. It's new, but I really believe that the stuff that we're putting out there is designed to help people that fall into this entrepreneur level area, the high performers, the people that do a lot in a day, that sometimes just need the reminders that we all need to be our best version. And I work really hard at sharing all my failures and successes and all my failures again. So anything we could do to help people. And obviously they can find my book on Amazon, which is called Freedom Street. And and that would be another way to check us out.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Scott, once again, thanks so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. Really appreciate that. And any last thing you want to share before we call it a wrap?
No, yes, I should say, not no. Yes, I think the only thing I would say is if people find themselves in inauthentic relationships, they will never, ever break the ceiling that they're trying to get through.
That's right.
Real relationships are authentic.
Yes.
They're not hard. They're authentic. You give of yourself and the other person will then give to you. It doesn't work the other way. Stop going through life trying to take something from someone, then give them back. That is the opposite recipe, and it's not the secret sauce.
That's right.
And you have labeled that from the beginning. Relationships are the key to success.
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing that as well. And because you're right. Yeah. Leading with a helping hand, serving others, being of assistance, pouring into, contributing, helping, all of that. You cannot do wrong by showing up that way, and yeah. So thanks again, Scott. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you. Such a great time.